Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Welcome to Declaration of Independence with Patrick Rooney, where we discuss how to become more independent in a world that is moving quickly to take away your freedom.
All right, we made it. Patrick Rooney's here. Patrick Rooney is here, and Declaration of Independence live stream is here. A little bit different background tonight. We had to change a few things, but we made it. The key is we made it tonight, and we're doing it tonight. We are going to talk about some very interesting stuff, and we're going to talk about U.S., Russia, Ukraine, but primarily what is going on with U.S. and Russia that's driving all this stuff. So I've got three of my friends and excellent guests here, and you have seen all these guys before. You love them, you hate them, but you can't live without them. All right, let's bring Robert, my friend Robert Campbell, with his Trump hat. He's going to inflame some folks here tonight with that Trump hat. Robert, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. Robert is he's a writer with Rapture Ready and Rapture Forums. He's also a great artist. I'd like to see your work out there even further, and but I know he's working on that. So very good. All right, let's bring in Brian Pombo. Hey, Brian Pombo.
Hi there.
Hey, Brian is a business expert, marketing guy who helps you put your business together and makes it work like a charm. So Brian Pombo, it's great to have you. And also you have a personal story you're going to tell tonight. And you know a lot about Ukraine, by the way, which is very fascinating. So he's going to tell you something about that. And last but not least, fabulous Fabian. How are you?
Good. Hello. How you doing?
Doing well. Fabian was in our chat last week. He was lurking in our chat. Now he's been given access to the microphone. So watch out. People in the chat, run for cover. All right, guys. It's great to see you guys on Saturday night. So hi to everybody in the chat. Let's check it in real quick before we get really rolling. Thanks, Mind Over Energy, for holding down the chat for us again. Really appreciate that. Doing great work as always. Mr. Sandy LaFontaine is in the chat, and we're going to have others coming in. So great seeing everybody. All right, guys, we're going to get right to it. As I said to you guys beforehand, I have a few drops in here that I might want to make during the show too, if we get to them, but if they fit well. But I really want to start this thing out. I'm going to say from the get-go, I'm not an expert on Russia, Ukraine, and U.S. foreign relations. Okay, I don't work in the State Department. All right, I don't work at Foggy Bottom. I don't have tentacles in D.C. I'm a regular guy with a regular show. We deal with natural health, success, and freedom, but freedom especially lately. Like a lot of people, I've gotten very interested in the idea of freedom and independence. In my opinion, we're going to need to become somewhat independent of the existing system because the way the system is going, it's going right off the cliff. I don't think we want to go there with them all the way. So tonight we want to talk about Russia and the U.S. and Ukraine and these other countries that are getting involved in this war. But I'm getting very concerned about what's going on. We've had some shows about this in the past. We've never done a full show with a panel on this, so I want to get to that tonight. I want to start with Brian. Brian, your wife was born in Kiev, Ukraine. Is that right?
That's right.
And you have a story to tell about first of all, I know you have a lot of background on this because of her being born there. Obviously, you're going to be watching that more than most people would. What is this? You were starting to tell me a story when we talked on the phone last week about once the war happened and Russia was bombing the Ukrainian people. Some of them were getting guns out. Some were trying to leave the country. You were probably almost in I wouldn't say near panic, but a very serious situation with your family there. Can you walk us through a little bit of what happened there?
Well, my wife was certainly in a panic.
Yeah.
It's something that I was watching. I met my wife in the early 2000s. We were working together, and I had been watching how Putin's administration had been running things for years, and I was very interested in it. And meeting her, coming from her angle, she was born in Kiev, and she had a very common opinion back then. At that time, Putin was actually very popular in that area. There's the Eastern Ukraine and Western Ukraine, and
right.
She came from more of an Eastern Ukrainian perspective, and I was surprised how much how positive she was about him and so forth. I said, really? And we were talking back and forth, and I tell her the things that I knew and show her articles. I mean, because by that time he was already well known for poisoning people and everything else.
Yes.
Fast forward a little bit further, we got married and so forth. Her family, which include her grandmother and aunt, uncle, and niece, and her niece didn't come over, but the rest of them came over for our wedding. And so I got to meet everyone, and I got gifts from Ukraine and all this stuff. So I got to know them well, even though they don't speak great English. And what we ended up doing was I told them early on, I said, you guys got to get out of there. This is a volatile part of the world. Putin's been talking forever about taking it over. He's been pushing. He's had puppet governments in there, everything else. It keeps going back and forth and back and forth. Yeah. And they've been fighting it the entire time. Her grandmother had a visa and started the process of moving over here, but that was interrupted by COVID and all this other stuff. So that didn't happen in time, but I saw this coming years ahead of time. And I told him that this is not good. You got to get out of there. So when it happened, it wasn't surprising to me. And so we said, my wife put a post out on Facebook that said, if anyone knows of anyone in these surrounding countries, Moldova and Romania and, all the surrounding countries, if you know anyone who can help us, please let us know. So one post on Facebook, just out to her friends, we got a huge influx of all these people offering up friends, Americans that are over there, other people that are over there, people that I've one friend from my past who knew tons of people internationally and just started lining people up for us. It was an incredible situation, and that was how they were able to get out of the capital city. What was they still living there?
Brian, what was the time frame on that? Is that before or after Putin started the bombing?
So I believe she sent a message out probably a few days after the invasion began. It was more like, okay, what's exactly happening? What's going on? Okay, this doesn't look good. And it was, by all reasonable accounts, you would have thought that he was going straight into Kiev to just take it over.
Right. That's what it looked like at first. Yeah.
And so it's not a good place to be. So we were trying to get them out, and they were hesitant. That they were in complete shock because everything leading up to that, including what their president was telling them, was that nothing's going to happen.
Right.
And the people especially in that city were in absolute shock.
And up until the point of maybe this war, your wife was pro-Russia, pro-Putin?
No, not up until the point of the war, up until the point when we started getting to know each other.
That's a while ago.
Yeah. And this is previous to the original Orange Revolution, which happened where they kicked out the puppet government, including help from a lot of the, global elites helped kick out the Putin's government. So you got the good and the bad there, but at the same time, right before that happened, me and her were talking, and then she could see it, and Ukraine started really boldly going in a different direction. And yeah, so she was very much came at it from an American perspective and could see through what was going on with Putin.
Let me bring on some very good, very interesting. We'll get back to that. Let me bring in something here, which I want to get your comment on this too, and you other guys can comment as well. But I want to get your comment on this specifically, because this is something that gets talked about a lot, and it's quite concerning. I have a piece here. It's about a 3-minute piece. Bear with it a little bit, but it's pretty interesting, and it tells what the U.S. has been doing behind the scenes. So I wanted you to comment on that, Brian. Then you guys can also comment on this.
The most blatant coup in history.
Tonight we have a very special guest.
I don't think Cleach should go into the government.
Ray McGovern, a former CIA analyst.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience.
For 3 U.S. Presidents.
And, the EU.
The most blatant coup in history, because it was advertised 2.5 weeks in advance on YouTube. Victoria Nuland was talking to our ambassador, the U.S. ambassador in Kiev, and she's saying, okay, we got this thing all arranged now. Yats. He's the guy we'll put in as prime minister.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy,
The other guys are sort of fascists. We'll put them in the wings.
What he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Joe Biden's going to glue this thing. We'll bring him in the last moment, and he'll put his stamp of approval on it.
You need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deeds to stick. So okay. Biden's willing.
The ambassador said, well, what about the EU? The EU is not going to like this. And
so that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, the EU.
And guess what? Yatsenyuk, a couple of days later, made prime minister. The U.S. recognizes the coup plotters, even though there are neo-Nazis in amongst them. It recognizes them immediately, and the first thing these guys say is, we're going to ban Russian as an official language in Ukraine, and we're going to join NATO. What did the Russians do? The military and strategic advisors said, well, we have to make sure that they don't have their eyes on our only warm water, our only ice-free all-year naval base in Sevastopol in Crimea. And so we better figure out what to do about Crimea first. And then there are people in the eastern part of the Ukraine who are Russian stock, who are really leery of this neo-fascist regime. We may want to help them too. Long story short, Crimea voted in a referendum overwhelmingly to rejoin Russia, and the people in eastern part of Ukraine and the Donbass, Lugansk, and Donetsk, they say, well, incorporate us too. We'd really like to be provinces in Russia. And Putin said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that, but we'll help you. We'll help you defend themselves.
All right, there's a lot to unpack there. That was a little bit of a longer one, but the rest of whatever else I'm going to put in will be a little shorter than that. But there's a lot there, and obviously there's a lot of concerning stuff there. We're talking about the United States being involved in coups around the, when Obama was in office, he was doing coups around the world. He was kicking out Gaddafi, having Gaddafi killed. He was having a lot of stuff go on, and one of those was, and that's why I want to get your perspective here, Brian. There was a pro-Putin government in there. Basically, you call it a puppet government. On the other hand, there were people in the streets, and there was all sorts of protests going on. Some of that was being pushed by outside forces, such as the United States. They had their own reason behind that. And as you can see, Victoria Nuland got caught on a telephone call, basically admitting that the Ukrainian government was a puppet government of the United States. That's very concerning. So I wanted to hear how you see that with all that you know about what's happened.
I think that the problem is when we look at things in a very black and white situation of good guys and bad guys. What you have in Ukraine is more than just two groups, but two major groups that we're mainly discussing here. Two major groups which are both bad. But it doesn't mean that everything that they're proposing is bad, and it doesn't mean that just because they're proposing it, it's a bad thing. So,
well, should we have been backing Ukraine at that time and getting rid of the so-called puppet? I mean, some people are saying he wasn't a puppet; he was a duly elected official, right? I don't know.
We can get into details and find out, but it's really difficult when there is so much corruption throughout the country where it's an everyday thing. I mean, they just live with it. Yes. They don't know how else to live. They just deal with it's just assumed that everything's corrupt. So you can't tell how any of these elections are supposed to be, other than when you have a large scale surveys being done, scientific surveys. You can kind of get a better idea.
And you're also saying that, when you think about where Ukraine is physically, it's like this little country in the middle of this big area, and this western part is Western, right? And they lean Western because you got Europe over here, and then this other part here speaks Russian, and they're next to Russia.
Well, so a little bit more about the history of that. The entire country up to the point of independence, up until the point of the wall coming down, spoke Russian. Most of the people growing up only spoke Russian. The older generation still spoke some Ukrainian, but it was almost a dead language there until the fall of communism.
Okay.
And once that occurred, everyone started learning Ukrainian again. They started pushing it in the schools long before 2014, by the way. The way this gentleman made it sound as if this came out of nowhere. No, this had been an ongoing movement to give themselves national identity, it's very important. And so they pushed very much Ukrainian language, the Ukrainian flag, a new, everything that goes along with that, so that they had something that was theirs.
Is it possible to be independent if you're that small with these big powers around you, or do you have to kind of like get in with the gang over here or the gang over here in order to survive?
Oh, that's up to them. You see, they're their own country. They can decide one way or the other who they want to be buddies with, or whether they don't want to be buddies.
But that's what kind of concerns me, is that I'm noticing the U.S., Russia's been doing this too. We have these we're basically fighting a proxy war with the Soviet Union right now, using the Ukrainians to fight for themselves, but we're kind of pushing them into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
I don't agree with that.
Well, you don't agree that we are?
Well, yeah. Well, no, I don't agree. We're pushing them into it. They've been pushed into it. So we're providing them with the means to defend themselves, and they're extremely capable. They're doing an awesome job, but so we're not pushing them into it. We're supplying, like same way we did World War II with Lend-Lease, et cetera, for Britain, and for when Japanese were attacking China, before we went in there and helped them.
I disagree with that 100%.
Shouldn't this stuff be out there? Like, in other words, there's all this money coming in from the World Economic Forum and people like this to Ukraine. Ukraine's in heavy debt, and they keep having to pay their bills no matter what's going on. But there's all these people in the background that want to control these other countries. The U.S. has been doing this for years, especially under Obama. It got really crazy.
Yeah, I know.
If this stuff is okay, why are we having to do it secretly? Why is Victoria Nuland and these people? Why are they pretending that we're just here to help and all this, but in the background they're basically pushing the war? I don't like stuff that goes on in secret.
Well,
and that's all this is. It's all
yeah,
secret.
But when you say they're pushing the war, I mean, the war has been started by Putin, so now they're in a situation where their civilians, their towns, they're getting bombed, they're getting mass murdered, they're doing what Putin did in Chechnya. So their backs are against the wall.
Why is Putin attacking the Ukraine? Why? What's behind that?
Well, let's address that. But in the meantime, they're fighting for their lives. They are fighting for their lives.
And that's the thing.
Okay, go ahead.
To take a black and white, Ukraine's good, Russia's bad, Russia's
No.
good, Ukraine's bad. It's good to take that, but we have to back up and look at the big picture. It didn't start with Russia invading, but on the same end, there's things that are in front of everyone's face and there's things that are behind the scenes. And so you got to kind of take this one piece at a time. It all depends on where you want to.
I know, but Brian, I know, but there's a lot of, I hear a lot of conservatives, rationalizations and stuff. I'm not saying here right now, but I understand that. But in the meantime, you have a nation that's being assaulted, and they didn't ask for that.
Absolutely.
They're trying to save their asses, and that is the first thing that they have to deal with. Okay, I understand all the other stuff. I get it, but right. they are. I mean, it's extreme.
Well, let me get into that, and I would get Robert in here too because he hasn't been able to get it worded in edgewise. I apologize. Sergeant Francis said Putin is a serpent. He does not fear an attack from NATO. He wants a reborn Russian Empire.
Absolutely.
I want to get to what you're saying too, Fabian. Okay, you say this is what was one reason why we're doing this show. Okay, you want to help them, but the way I see the U.S. helping them is, should we be giving them intelligence to make sure that they kill off Russian generals? Should we make sure that we're giving them intelligence to make sure that they sink Russian ships and then brag about it in the news? I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I think that just pushes Russia more belligerent.
I know, but the thing is, I'm hearing that a lot, of that in the conservative side, where, we're pushing Russia, we're proxy war Russia. The thing is, you cannot deal with someone like that with any kind of weakness and appeasement. Okay. We've proved that throughout history. So all we're doing is we're helping, supplying them with arms. They are doing an incredible job. They're fighting a much bigger army. So what are we supposed to do? Fear that, his threats against the world and just back off and basically hand over Ukraine to him?
Why is
we're just going to hand them over?
Attacking the Ukraine? What is the reason why he's attacking Ukraine?
And this is the thing, we got to handle one idea.
Hang on.
He's a psychopathic nut.
No.
Robert, I want you to have a chance here. You haven't had a chance so far.
There's levels here, and we got to decide what level we're going to hit because we're bouncing all over the board.
Of course, Putin is evil. But there's a reason behind why he's doing what he's doing. Okay, sure. America is not innocent. Okay, and they're right there helping Ukraine, which means they're fighting America. So we poked the bear, okay? We poked him, okay? And he's not going to back down, okay? And Brian, is it the truth that Ukraine was almost where Russia began, that area where in the old days, depending on your on where historians debate where Russia officially began, but the Kievan Rus was the original city, right.
And so the word Russia comes from Ukraine. So that is.
But you call Putin a psychopath, maniac, whatever. That's easy on the surface to say.
It's the truth.
But behind all the scenes, he's not the only one that's pushing this. If we get rid of Putin, someone's it's going to step right in his shoes, and this bear is going to march across the land. Okay,
I understand that, but he's the main assaulter right now. And if you look at the reason, he's former KGB. A lot of KGB guys went in there and they're, surround him. If you guys look at you probably have the Frontline documentary on him. I think it's pretty even-handed. Yeah. So I'm just saying that look at his reasoning of going in there. It's more lies. Russians are so good at lying, the KGB type of personality that he is. He still is like that. Denazification. Come on. Really?
That's a joke. It's a joke. Cuddly country?
It's not for denazification. Okay, but he's the one that's acting. He's the one that's acting like a Nazi. My God, he's mass murdering civilians. Who the hell's a Nazi?
All right, hang on. Brian, are there Nazis in the government in Ukraine in any kind of power?
In power, I'm not aware of. They do have them in some of the military units that they've been able to show in power currently. Even Russia has not pointed to exact people. He also said that there were drug abusers in power, and that's why it was this big colorful story to back invasion. But what Sergeant Francis said is absolutely true. This is a long time coming. The philosophy has been laid down for 20 years plus. He wants to reunite the Russian Empire, and Ukraine is a key part of that. And he could blame it on NATO and blame it on a whole bunch of other things. But
of course,
does he have anything legit? Does he have any legitimate reasons? Anyone's opinion? We know Fabian saying no. Are there any legitimate reasons for his self-defense, for any particular reason for Putin to do this?
Well, here's the question: who's attacked him? Who's even threatened to attack Russia?
The United States.
We've threatened to attack Russia. Where? At what point?
Well, we're talking about
where we said offensively we're going to invade Russia.
Not offensively, but we're ratcheting up. We're ratcheting up the war machine here, right?
No, but having a strong defense and having a strong offense are two different things. Russia has shown the propensity in just recent years to invade portions of other countries and take them over. Then they hold an election, and they say, "Oh, everyone agrees that they want to be part of Russia." Oh, that's interesting.
You know what? That is true, but so is NATO. So is the United States.
Okay, I'm not saying NATO and the United States are clean here.
Right.
And if I can bring it back to the bigger picture, I honestly believe we cannot fight this war right with Biden in office. It's impossible. It's like saying Jimmy Carter's in there and he really wants to do the right thing. And he really doesn't trust Russia. I mean, look at what he did with the Olympics and everything. For people who want to go back far enough and look at that, there's no way he could try to do all the exact right things. He will fail every time. We will not be able to succeed against Russia with the Biden administration in there. There is always going to be trouble attached to it.
Okay, so go ahead, Fabian.
I believe we are in a very bad situation for that reason. I agree, because they had a coup, they took over our government right in front of our faces, and now we got an idiot running as a commander-in-chief. So we're in big trouble. I agree, but I'm still for sending those arms. We're helping save lives, and they're fighting for their nation. I think they're doing an awesome job. And also, if you look at 2008. Germany and France, I believe, they didn't want to let Ukraine have NATO entrance because they were, hey, we don't want to poke the bear, like you're saying, Robert. Okay, so what happened? They didn't. Then 6 weeks later, they invaded Georgia. Okay, then time goes. What happens? They still, we're fearing poking the bear because of the NATO thing. They're still not in NATO, so they take over Crimea, etc. Okay, now we advance to now. Okay, still NATO thing. So what did you see? It's a step by step. We've appeased him.
Right, well, look, there's another part here that we're not mentioning. We're spending billions and billions of dollars that we do not have in order to support the borders of another country, when we might as well put a turnstile on our own border. Okay, people are running in here. God knows, military-aged men from God knows where are coming into our country. Inflation is through the roof. Now that we've done some of these things in terms of sanctioning Russia, we find out that we don't have supplies on the shelf. Gasoline's going through the roof. We're going to have a famine here caused by, sounds like, more about our response than it is about what Putin's actually doing. Comment.
But go ahead. Yeah. I don't want to dominate. Go ahead, Robert, or somebody.
You know what?
True or not?
The bear has been poked, okay, and he's not going to back down. All this that has happened to this point is almost turning the pages on the Bible, okay? And where it's going to end up, Europe, where they get their oil from Russia, they're going to wean themselves off and try to get their supplies from Israel. And that's even going to poke the bear even rougher than that. He's really going to get pissed. The bottom line is, it's all pointing to that one tiny little country over there in the Middle East, and that's Israel. And that's what it's all going to end.
For sure, it's being set up.
And we're not going to stop this bear now.
I
Can give reasons why Ukraine or Russia are fighting each other. It's already started, and we're not going to stop it.
All right, hang on for a moment. I'm going to drop something in right now that's going to talk exactly about that. That's news a lot of people probably don't know.
Sarah, your caveat at the end there was very important. This is based on a report by Israel's Channel 13 that on Friday, as Israel was allegedly striking in Masyaf in northwestern Syria, then in addition to the Syrian anti-aircraft systems that were activated, also the strategic S-300 Russian system was also launched at Israeli jets. Now, these systems cannot be launched without Russians deliberately pushing the trigger, basically. Now, as you described, this is definitely, if confirmed, this would mark a significant shift in Russia's in the Israeli strategy and relations between Moscow and Israel, and as far as the security cooperation between the two countries is going on. Russia's had a significant military presence in Syria since 2015. During that period, Israel has conducted hundreds of strikes, but there's been cooperation between the sides to avoid any incidents. There's even a de-escalation hotline that the two sides can coordinate whenever there's Israeli strikes. This appears to be mark a change amid the growing tensions between Moscow and Jerusalem. Israel has been trying to walk a fine line between Russia and Ukraine amid Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, and this appears to have changed in recent weeks, also due to growing criticism by the Israeli side, but also escalatory anti-Semitic rhetoric coming out of Moscow. Now, this also comes at the heels of reports in Ukrainian media that Israel has pretty much moved forward in its support of Ukraine's military aspect, and so this could have larger scale implications on the very sensitive strategic ties between the two sides.
So Israel and Ukraine or Russia have had kind of an alliance for some time. That is now being pulled apart by the fact that Israel is supporting Ukraine. So this is Friday. That's yesterday. We're talking about Saturday today. This is new stuff going on.
Yeah, we're seeing prophetic events right before our eyes. It's amazing.
We are.
Even down to the point where President Biden got into office. That was all planned. The whole setup. It weakened our nation. It's even said in the Bible where all nations will go against Israel. Well, we're pretty much there now, okay? I don't think there's one country that's supporting Israel. Israel is all by themselves now, and they're going to have to fight these battles. America is supplying arms and to Iran, all the countries that hate Israel. So it's all going to come to a boiling point. So even if we get rid of Putin, there's someone stepping right behind him, and he's going to keep the thing moving. It's not going to stop.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. I see this as the Red Horseman is starting the ride. 100% personally, I see that. I see the COVID shots as the White Horseman. Now we're advanced to the Red Horseman. And it fits right into a 7-year period. And I believe that we're going to see much wider war. And then from that devastation, you're going to see the Antichrist come as the savior. That's what I see being set up.
Well, thanks for the good news, buddy.
Even down to China with 200 million men that they have sit there in waiting, They had that many people, soldiers,
the great
in waiting.
News is the king is coming 2028 with his army, and it's going to be the most exciting day in human history.
Well, we're going to have to see. We may do another show on that one, on prophecy by itself. Let me get Sergeant Francis said, we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Yes, sir. We can secure. This is getting back to, I think, something that we need to focus on here. It's the people.
Okay.
Because whatever our governments do, our government is corrupt. The Ukrainian government is corrupt, right? There's lots of things about the government.
I think the leader of Ukraine. I mean, if you think about it, would he allow that kind of devastation to his country and not come up with some kind of peace talk or something instead of both these egos bumping heads?
I'll take that on.
I want to talk. Okay, Brian's going to take that down because this has been bothering me.
Even though it may not work, but I'm just surprised that a small country like that would decide he wants to go against Russia.
Right, Robert. I mean, Brian, I'll give you a shot on this. But what I don't understand, someone mentioned this the other day. I think it's Michael Savage. How come the United States is always into peace talks when it comes to the Middle East? But in Ukraine and Russia, they're not interested in peace. This is what I said.
No.
We are not interested in peace. We are interested in pushing, in my opinion, poking the bear, so to speak. Why aren't we interested in peace? And you can answer that, Brian. Go ahead.
Okay, there's a couple things I want to hit on there. Okay. First off, this poking the bear theory, that isn't really what happened. Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
No. If anyone poked the bear, Trump poked the bear. Okay. We're just talking about Syria attacking Israel. We attacked Syria, which was a direct proxy situation against Russia.
That's true.
Trump had more operations against Russia and proxy Russian groups than anybody. He was strong against them, and the bear doesn't attack unless it thinks it can win. It's not the poking of the bear. It's like Fabian said, it's the appeasement that brings on the bear, not the strength. Yep. They respect strength.
I agree with you.
So if you take that back to the original question, if the point is that they respect strength, the only thing that slows them down and stops them is standing up against them. Now, I'm not saying all the people are good that are against Russia. The problem is we've got this global elite that is in there, and they are fighting Russia at the same time. Right. They're using them as a guinea pig for the ESG and all this other stuff. I mean, we go on and on and on. That is occurring. There are bad guys against Russia in Ukraine that the Ukrainian government is siding with because they're trying to survive. And I honestly think that if Zelensky, the job of Zelensky was not to stand up against them. If you looked at how all of the countries of the world were acting, especially the US, they all turned their backs on Ukraine.
Right.
That Biden pulled everybody out and basically rolled out the red carpet for Putin. Everyone backed out because that was the plan. Zelensky was the piece that wasn't part of the plan. It's not because he's an operative of the global elitists. It's because he doesn't know any better. And he went against the script because of that.
Maybe he actually loves his country.
No, I think he does love his country. Yeah. I think he means well. I think that he has sided with the wrong people because he's doing everything he can to survive. And I think they're all telling him, if you stick with it, we'll keep backing you and Russia can't win. And I think they're right. I think that's why they've done it. They have moved out a huge population of their country, millions and millions. There hasn't been a movement, a migration of this many people since World War II or something?
Yeah.
So I mean, this is big time. This is about absolute survival. I don't think he's the sharpest tool in the shed. I don't think he's very smart, but I do think he's siding with the wrong people. But on the same end,
well, what is wrong?
Not totally,
Brian. What is wrong with attempting some type of a ceasefire peace situation?
They try
because you have an invading force. Look at what they did every other time. This has only happened in recent history. I mean, this has happened over and over again. Right. Crimea is the biggest example. That was a ceasefire situation. This is okay. We can agree to disagree. We think Crimea is ours and you think Crimea is yours. And they just let them sit there. What happens is when you appease the beast keeps coming.
That's right.
You're only rewarding them.
That's exactly. And I hear a lot of appeasement from the right here in America. And I'm not saying that the thing is also personally what I see.
I just see weakness. I don't see weakness.
Ukraine is, look, they're corrupt. We're corrupt. France is corrupt. England's corrupt. Everyone's corrupt. The scum.
I'm not going for that.
It's the
truth. I'm not going to throw everybody in the field bucket just because
To some extent,
I agree that
every government.
What country isn't corrupt, actually?
Right, to some extent. Okay, right. So then you have Putin, who's he sees Ukraine. He wants to, reunify the country. If you guys look at that documentary, maybe you have already, he worked diligently to undo everything that Reagan helped accomplish with Yeltsin, etc. And he's accomplished it. That guy is a psychopath. He's now, he's prosecuting a war the same way that he did with Chechnya. It's try to murder enough and demoralize enough civilians that they will just throw their hands up. That's the Russian way. And I say, God bless them for standing up against them. And we should help them as much as we can. Look, we're spending money on all kinds of stuff. Patrick, we're in debt. Everything we spend isn't there. We know that. I mean, at least maybe God will have some mercy on us.
So the heck with the Americans that we left in Afghanistan. 49 billion that we left, and we're going to take the same 49 billion and help another country. No. You want to say we're going to help another country, and we left our own people in Afghanistan, okay? And we're going to put the same amount of money over there to help the Ukrainians. Give me a reason why. Why aren't we helping to get the Americans out of Afghanistan?
The right thing to do.
Because was it the right thing to do to leave our arms over there in Afghanistan? And the Americans, they couldn't catch
What does that have to do with it, Robert?
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
And this is specifically for Fabian. Is there an amount you think we should not spend? Is there a limit?
Yes.
And what number is that?
I don't know. And probably the 40.
That's the problem. The problem here is not us. The problem is the administration. They will always do it wrong. They will always launder the money and do everything they can to mess us over. They're against freedom here and everywhere. And that's the real problem.
I know, but Brian, I'm not going to say don't help them, don't send anything, because they're sending too much. The thing is, without our help and Europe's assistance,
we don't know what
they probably would have been conquered already.
How about
we don't know what's going on? That's the problem.
How about
you can see a lot of video, you got to look at a lot of sources.
All right, hang on.
And I don't believe Russia is using all their might anyway. I think they're just using their leftover material. If they really want to wipe out Ukraine, they could have did it overnight.
I think they could have too.
There's something bigger behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we don't probably have a lot of time left. Let's get down to nitty gritty, what we can and can't, should and shouldn't do. Let's see what we can agree on. Can we agree that people in in Ukraine deserved whatever help they can get? Basically.
Yes.
Do we agree that Putin appears to me and most people a psychopath? I'm not a Putin apologist. I see him as a psycho also. But we also have, if we agree on that, I don't know if
I don't believe he's a psychopath. I do believe he's evil. I think his every step that he takes is completely predictable. And all you have to know is what he's trying to achieve and what he normally does in order to get it and what can stop him. He's completely predictable.
Right, but you said
do we allow millions of people to come across the border to destroy our country, or do we go and help the people in Ukraine? Which one do we do first?
This is
we're doing it all.
This is what Sergeant Francis said. Can't we walk and chew gum at the same time?
Of course we can.
As Americans, we can, but we are being run by a government that will never allow the good
totally
thing to
destroying America.
Yeah.
So given the fact that we all agree, probably most people watching this are agreeing that this current administration is ruining America, right? They are spending money. God knows what they're spending some of the Ukraine money on, because they're spending many times more than they're spending to watch our own borders, right? So they're putting all this money out. They're putting money into the money supply, inflating the money supply, making the value of the dollar go down, down, down. It appears, to me, it's pretty obvious there are people within this administration are purposely trying to destroy our country.
100%. And why would we destroy our own equipment, knowing that, if you destroy our missiles, you destroy your missiles? Do you think Russia really obeyed that rule?
I don't. Well,
why do they even have nuclear tactical missiles? And we destroyed ours. We got rid of them. You think they were going to destroy theirs? Oh, really?
I'm going to actually say, after watching some documentaries lately, that I think I was wrong to some degree about Gorbachev. I think Gorbachev did want peace. he did want to reform the communists there. And I think that he did want to work and did work with Reagan, and so did Yeltsin. But after we got past those guys, we got Putin. Yeltsin made a huge mistake by bringing Putin in as the second guy.
Well, he said he was sorry. That was the biggest mistake of his life.
Yeah. So I do think those guys. So let's just to stay on point and try to wrap this in a way that hopefully is useful to people. So we're going to agree on certain things. The U.S. is totally corrupt right now as far as the U.S. government. Putin seems to be, you call him evil, psycho, whatever you want to call him. I don't think he may have some reasons that are legitimate for what he's done, but for the most part, it looks like he's just gobbling power, gobbling land the way that Napoleon did, the way that Caesar did, the way that
it has a very rich history behind it and everything else. It doesn't take long to go into that, but that's we have that conversation at a different time.
Right. So given that, and we say that the people of the U.S. it's like we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, okay, Ukraine's corrupt, therefore don't help them. Well, we'd be saying the United States is corrupt, so therefore the people are all corrupt too. We don't believe that. We believe some people want freedom. Clearly, a lot of Ukrainians did want freedom. Even in 2014, they were played by different sides, but you could tell that the people themselves wanted freedom, and I think want freedom today. So since they do, is there anything that can be done now? Because short of Trump coming back in, if somebody says the election was, I got to be careful here, not real or whatever, and they start challenging the results, right? It's always possible. Go ahead, Robert.
I believe this is a perfect opportunity that God is sitting there and allowing us to make a decision now with these upcoming elections for America. Okay, here's a scenario. We have the midterm and the presidential elections coming up. And this is a perfect time for the people to put their mouth where their money is, or where their money where their mouth is, okay? This is the chance right here to prove a point. We're either going to make America strong again, or we're going to allow corrupt, stealing people to rob us blind and break America down. Now, I must remind you that in the Bible, America is going to disappear. So that's all I'm going to tell you. So if this is the way it's going to happen, it's still happening fast.
That may be. I can only deal with what's going on now. And okay.
And we're breaking America's back right now.
Robert, hang on.
Robert. Okay.
Let me just say this. I agree with you that we need to see what happens in the elections too. But let's think about that. The elections are not till November. Those people are not seated until January. Okay. We're only in May here? A lot of people are going to die between now and January. So the question is, what can we, and I don't know, I'm throwing this out, okay? What can be done, if anything now, given the fact that we have all these corrupt people in charge? What can be done for the people of Ukraine now without breaking the bank here? Or what can we do to help Ukraine and ourselves now? Is there anything that people can do now?
Well, the thing is, they already passed the 40 billion, right? So the money and the arms supplies are flowing now. So, however screwed up it's being done, however too much is being done, I'm grateful that they're being helped. And that's, it's survival for them. They're being mass murdered, for heaven's sakes.
All right. Brian, do you want to jump on that? No?
I agree. I think that the problem is we're stuck. We're in a situation where we can't do anything about this situation.
It's like a snowball going down a hill.
Yeah, until we can switch out our government, until we can make a difference there's nothing that we can do to fix this. We're watching things happen and our hands are tied. And that's just the reality. People, conservative Americans need to be not okay with it, but you have to be at peace with that and then say, okay, what can we do? How do we switch our government over?
Okay. Right. Well, let's take another thing. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think people are going to disagree with you about that, Brian. I'm looking at it another way, and I remember one of my family members reminded me of this the other day, but it's so true. There's God in the equation. There's always God in the equation, and since we've turned our backs, hopefully, as of Monday, as early as Monday, we may have an overturning of Roe v. Wade. Did you guys hear that? And so that is a very big step in the right direction. But there is a spiritual component there that we need to pray, we need to fast, we need to get very serious and come back to God here. Because I think God has purposely, in a way, put us in a situation where there is no, in a way, I think we have an idol. We have idols, and one of our idols, I think, is politics and elections. I love elections. I'm political, but we can't replace God with an election. And
right.
We tend to think the next election is going to fix it, and it never really does.
No.
And if we don't have God somehow in here, that's part of the reasons we even started these live streams, is to bring God back in. And maybe that's an appropriate place for us to kind of pause here and maybe go out tonight soon, because I think we've got to bring ourselves back and humble ourselves before God, because I don't see any actions that we could take. We're stuck, and I think we're stuck on purpose right now.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, I agree with like what Roy used to say. You know, we're not going to save the world, but we can save ourselves from the world, and hopefully help others, from that. And personally, I see that we are in end times, and the very sad thing is, and it's very brilliant of evil and Satan to do it, is he captured the left and the right. I mean, to a large degree, with the whole medical mafia takeover. I know, I got to be careful what I say, but
yes.
Trump went along with the whole deal, and he's still lying about it. So people are putting him in an idolatry position, and they don't realize it. So people need to look at that.
You're going to stir the hornet's nest in the closing part of this show, but
I know.
But I agree with you, and I was a big Trump supporter. And I'm different than you. I would still vote for him if he's a nominee, but I would go for maybe DeSantis or somebody else. But I am very disappointed in what he did in that issue. But let's take that aside. I agree. People tend to make somebody a cult. They made Trump a cult. They make everybody a cult. Everybody gets made into a cult.
Still are.
But we need to make God, maybe cult is the wrong word, but we need to switch it back to God being the one we're looking at. No human beings whatsoever. And I think that's where it's going to be. And we're going to keep talking about spiritual matters. We talked about meditation, prayer on this show. I think, one thing we probably haven't talked about too much, maybe we'll do a show in the future about it, is talk a little bit about things like fasting and other spiritual, what's the word? Not gifts, but actions.
Practices.
Because we've gotten to a point in this country and maybe in the world that hell has opened up. And it's just came out, right? It's just all over the world. And we need to start looking at the way they did in the days of old. They prayed, they fasted, they cast out demons. And if you don't pray and fast, you can't do stuff like that. This might sound radical here, but we have to realize there are spiritual tools out there. And once we get to the end of our political rope, there are no tools there never are any tools unless we go back to God anyway.
Yeah, we have to have our faith in the Holy Spirit, right? Yeah, the faith is not in politics, but we do what we can do.
We still have to do what we can do. We don't want to be the other way, that some people are going to be all politics and some people are going to be all spiritual. But let's be like the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers knew how to mesh these things.
Well, it's a matter of order. So you can't
But isn't politics rather a tool that we use to make that happen? Is this still politics as a idol? I disagree with that. It was just the way it was set up. We do things to make things work and to make the world go round.
No,
and it's bad people that make politics bad.
I'm not saying politics is an idol. I'm saying we've made politics an idol.
But you interrupted Brian. He didn't finish his.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was all I was saying is that it really comes down to the order in which you do it in your own life. You can't fight the war on the outside if you aren't winning the war on the inside.
Right.
You've got to be stable enough that you can see things on the outside and know how to handle them in the moment's notice. You can't do that if you're messed up in here and you're fighting your own demons. You're committing suicide on any level, whether you're fighting an actual war with guns or whether you're fighting a political war just to try and switch out presidents and so forth.
Yeah. Amen. I think we all agree to that. Basically, you understand what he's saying, right, Robert?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap, because really we get to a point, it's funny because I'm kind of getting to the point of what can we do? And honestly, maybe that's a little bit of, what's the word? Hubris. It's kind of like we always think we can do something.
Yeah.
In reality here, we are actually stuck in, I think, a position where we've realized we've hit a wall, and there has to be a spiritual solution here. And
well,
so,
didn't God say, he'll put us in a position where we ain't got no choice but to look at him and have faith that he's going to see us through this? Okay.
Yeah.
And, we just have to have faith that we do what's right no matter what. And we can't control what's getting ready to happen here. Okay.
Well,
And we got to use politics in November to try to slow this curve down a little bit, or maybe, we got to have faith in Jesus Christ.
That's right. We got to do politics, by the way. I'll let you say, Fabian, but we got to do politics now, because this is where the parties decide who the people are. If you're not paying attention now and you're a conservative, let's say you're a Republican, you're a conservative, you're going to let a rhino get in there, and then it'll be a rhino against a Democrat. And a rhino is only going to allow what's going on and just going to slow it down a little bit, whereas a Democrat would just do it quicker. So if you want real conservative people, start looking in your areas, get involved in your county, and see what is going on, and find out people and support the right people. Vet these people, ask them hard questions. That's what we're doing in our county, and I'm sure you're doing that in your county, Brian, and hopefully Fabian and Robert, you're doing the same.
Yeah, we just had an election this last Tuesday here, our primary election in Oregon. So, you got to get out there. You got to be part of the process. Keep educating yourself and learn more, and you'll learn more about yourself all the way.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted thing. It starts with God, but it obviously includes the exterior things we could do. It includes basics that we talked about a little on the show. We'll talk about more of this in future shows, I'm sure. It talks about getting yourself set up in your own life on physical things. Talked about, food. We know there's famines that look like they're coming. So you need to grow food. You need to keep some food and water. You need to get some skills.
Me and Brian was talking about that off air about, the pandemic the flu-demic, where you went into the stores and there was nothing on the shelves. I mean, it was surreal to me. I mean, I just stopped and looked around and actually see nothing on the shelves. And I said, you know what, this is going to happen again. And this is a warning that God is, putting on, y'all need to be prepared. And I'm getting pretty well prepared myself a little bit. And I kind of think, I'm glad. I'm not going to get caught with my britches down again the second time, because it's going to be painful.
Me too.
Again, you don't make that an idol either, but you do get prepared. Go ahead, Fabian.
Right.
No, I just see the story's been written. It's playing out.
Yep.
It's very miraculous, and very soon, I believe, it's going to be so clear. When we see the Antichrist and see the two witnesses, no one's going to be able to deny it.
Well, I'm not going to argue against you for possible end times here. It certainly is looking that way to me. But meanwhile, even if it is end times, every day, every moment, we keep our eyes on ourselves and on God, and He's guiding us.
And we got to get up and go to work and do what we have to do to maintain our family, to live. God knows that.
And live happily, right? Because
and do the best that we can.
The scripture says, "Live with joy in any circumstance."
Oh yeah,
right.
It makes me want to be all the more centered.
Yes.
It just all the more because I want to be ready. I want to be ready with whatever happens. I don't want to have to face my Maker or Jesus and be short of what I should have been.
I hear you, 100%. Robert Campbell writes for Rapture Ready and Rapture Forums. You can reach him. Let me put this here. I usually have his thing up. You can reach Robert. Here it is. He has a little bit of a tough email, but there it is. rdtcmttsa@mail.com. That's a hard one, but there it is. Thank you, Robert. And
thank you.
Appreciate you as always, my friend. All right. Brian J. Pombo, Bold Action Network. That's for people who are interested in political action and doing it the right way and using your head. Don't just rush into things. Count what's going on. Count the costs, as Jesus said. Don't just rush in there and say, I'm going to run for this, and we're going to put 50 conservatives in one race and let them all blow each other's vote, and so one rhino walks in. Don't do that, right?
If you have an idea of either whether you're running for office or you're starting an organization, you have any type of idea that you just want to start talking about, we're starting to network together and help each other out across the country. So
very
plug
cool.
in.
And Brian's a good dude, a level-headed dude, as you can see on this show today. And I like what he's doing a lot. All right, let's go. Fabian, Fabian, go to Fabian Asensio on YouTube. Are you giving out your email tonight too?
Oh, sure. It's fitnessrocker1, the digit 1 at gmail.com. And thank you. This was enjoyable, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Does this, hopefully this helps a little bit. I know that we'd love to have like instantaneous answers to everything, but I think honestly, this does not present itself with just a microwave answer. It's a more serious, deeper answer.
Yeah.
All right. And go ahead, Roman. Yeah. And go to, thought I had our information on here too as well. Go to oldschoolus.com if you want to help out. You can support us one time or monthly if possible. It doesn't take a lot of money. $5 would help a lot a month. If a lot of people did it, it would help greatly. Anybody wants to reach me, info@oldschoolus.com, info@oldschoolus.com. Also, if you like these conversations, subscribe and tell us what you'd like to hear more of. What would you like to talk about? Let me take one last look at the comments. Guys, if I can get to it, it's freezing up on me here. Forgive me. I think it just froze on me. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
It kind of froze up on me a little bit. Sergeant France, I have skills and survival stash, sauerkraut and dried beans. Hey, man, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Thank you, Mind Over Energy, again, for helping out. Thank you, Sergeant Francis. Many comments. I can't get to many of them. Ted W. was here as well. Just many comments. Mr. Sandy LaFontaine. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And I think we're out, if I can get this dang thing to work right here. We're out. Goodbye, everybody. Hopefully it was useful. I love you guys. I think that it's very useful to have these different people coming at it. We're coming at it different ways, but I think in one way we are coming at it the same way. So God willing that we're coming in unison for the things that we should be united about. All right. Thank you so much, guys. And
thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us on Declaration of Independence with Patrick Rooney. For more information on how to become more independent in a world that is moving quickly to take away your freedom, or to support this program, go to oldschoolus.com. See you next time.